Welcome back, you filthy exiles, to another build curation video for 3.17. Just off the back of the announcements this morning, obviously there's a huge number of changes to the game itself, as well as a bigger focus on trying to kill Maven each league. Whether you love it or not, that's the move going forwards. But outside of that, overall the changes to all the builds or all the abilities to make builds has actually improved in allowing for build diversity. That being said, I'll be covering off on more safer builds to play as a league start sort of element. Now, some of these, or all, if not all of these, I've went and benchmarked POBs out of week 1 trees from 3.16. And some other things to note, Aegis Aurora Gigatank builds are still a thing. In fact, no one even thought to touch Aegis Aurora, so there's definitely going to be a couple of those in this list. And then from there, we've only got one Necromancer build, which I think is valid, and we're actually going to look at advocating for Totems for the first time in a league, and we'll go into detail in that one. However, anyway, I hope everyone's excited. We'll be, up and playing POE again in no time, within, the next week. It's going to be awesome. This league's looking good. I'm excited. I'll be streaming. Also, I've obviously got the Twitch channel up and running these days, so feel free to pop by. I'll put a link in the description. And anyway, let's get into the 5 solid builds for PoE 3.17. So the first build that we're going to look at here was actually very, very common in the 3.16 league, and at this stage, as far as I can see from the patch notes, there's no impact on Corrupting Fever. Now, there's a number of builds that are actually out on this one, including Tornado Shot Corrupting Fever. What it excels at is applying Fever stacks to a large number of enemies in a very short amount of time. It's actually a really great map clear build and early sort of game mapper. Now, where it's not so strong is in the end game bossing, but that being said, it still holds up. Now, as far as the tree that I've actually provided, I've provided a link to the video of what Grimro put together for last league, as you can see in the footage, and down in the description a link to his video. What I've actually also done in respect to this one is I've pulled a week 1 leveling tree from PoE 3.16 to sort of exemplify what to do. So one of the actual real interesting things about this build is a lot of people played it, but no one really did a build guide for it, at least from a league start perspective. However, there were quite a number of sort of updates provided throughout the piece. Now, things to remember about this build is you're not actually directly doing damage with Kinetic Blast. How it works is you're equipping Kinetic Blast with a bunch of utility skills like Life Tap, Life Gain on Hit, Maim, Pierce, and then from there you're going to, this takes the form of a physical spellcaster with the Gladiator Ascendancy. When you move into a map, you're then going to hit Corrupting Fever, and then basically that's what's going to do a predominant amount of damage. And then on top of that, you're also going to have a Spellslinger set up with Accentuate as well. And then this is going to go off as you cast with the Kinetic Blast being a wand skill. Now, from a damage perspective, pretty good. Excellent map clear. Absolutely insane map clear. You'll probably find that this will be a very good league starter itself, but not so much something that you'll take into endgame, though it will scale out and you can switch to Tornado Shot later in the piece. What I'd probably also say is the POB that I've provided as well has no cluster jewels in it, and this is by design. Because it's a league starter, we want to keep the cross down as much as possible. Now, damage-wise, it's not the highest amount of damage that you'll ever see, but for getting sort of into early to mid-tier mapping, before you put in huge sums of investment into the build, this is something that'll get you started in the 3.17 league extremely efficiently. So yeah, all the just links will be in the description for this one. So as trustworthy as a build can be, Righteous Fire has always been one of those builds that we have all loved, and there are 1,000 different ways to play it. In particular, this time I've actually picked out a hardcore SSF tree and provided that from RaizQT. And out of the bigger streamers, I actually really like RaizQT. He does some pretty good videos. Now, he goes into quite a lot of detail in his video, and I've put the link in the description. However, also on top of that, I've pulled his tree. It does a pretty decent amount of damage, considering the level of tankability. Total life pool, 8,000, about 460k DPS. However, if you would like more DPS, and you would also like to try out the Jorgen flavor of Righteous Fire, then I've actually, while I was in the live stream this morning, I've provided a second tree, which I tailored into a max block Glancing Blows Aegis Aurora version of Righteous Fire, which actually gets close to like 1.1, 1.3 mil fire dot from RF, and is using the Aegis Aurora, which means with max block, which means it has 75% spell and block chance, self-attack block, overcapped resistances to a capacity of 79, 82, 77 for Fire, Cold, and Lightning, and 75% Chaos Res. Now, that being said, there's a little bit of investment that needs to go in this build. It's got a +2 on as far as spell and fire spell links. Aegis Aurora, Crown of the Inward Eye, Shadow Stitch, which isn't going to be available straight away, and I'm very mindful of that, but this is the sort of tree that you can work to. What I would actually say is follow RaizQT's build or video around how to sort of level it up in the initial phases and the understanding of the build. It's incredibly informative. And then from there, take either my tree or, you know, you can even take Aegis Aurora off, then supplement that out with a +1 of fire skill shield itself, which is going to give you about 180,000 more fire dot per second. And then basically go from there. However, anyway, all the links and all the POBs, additional POBs, will be in the description to supplement you on your journey for Righteous Fire. I'll actually be playing this build myself. What I realized is there aren't really any good build guides for RF from 3.16, in particular with all the changes to the tree. So I am going to be doing this version, this Aegis Aurora build moving forwards for this league. So keep sort of watch this space, and yeah, that's my second build that I'm gonna advocate for 3.17. So build number 3, this one is one that's close to home for me, and you guys will remember it. In fact, thanks for the comment, Carmoth. I'll make sure that's on the screen for you, bro. Is the Vortex Occultist. Now, I played this build last league. However, I played this a little differently. I played it a CI variation with Aegis Aurora, max block, and as you guys would have seen, and the description video is in the description, as well as the POB attached to that video. This build was basically just a giga tank that you could face tank almost everything with, including Cyrus, and it just gave zero shits about pretty much anything and everything, which made it fantastically great. Now, one of the things to understand about the Vortex Occultist in particular, and I should note the video in the background and the main description link is going to Pheonix, which I've curated a number of his builds. He does an excellent build guide around this from a league starting perspective and also just in general, and explains it well. But one of the things that should be remembered is the Vortex skill set really relies on additional skill levels to gems in particular, and many facets of these builds have +1 skills to, you know, whatever, whether that be by wand or whether that be by Skin of the Lords and things like that. Increasing the overall gem level of Vortex tends to push the damage up into higher categories. Now, I've provided Pheonix's video. I've also provided another week 1 benchmark tailored tree from POB from 3.16. As far as I can see from the patch notes, again, just won't be, essentially won't have any, the changes won't have any impact on the actual build, league on league. They really haven't touched this type of build because it is a self-cast build and not a trigger skill. Now, the main thing is obviously with Vortex, you set it so it triggers off of your move button, and then basically just Vortex around. Now, you do need to synergize this with Creeping Frost and other various skills that apply some form of frost or, you know, whatever else, frostbite, elemental weakness, anything that you can get to really impact the enemy's ability to take increased cold dot. The other thing with the build tree that I've put in from my version of the POB, for low life, you'll also notice that it's actually using, well, number 1, low life, but it's actually using a Spellslinger setup to proc a Creeping Frost setup that allows for Bone Chill and also easy Frenzy Charge generation. Without using that sort of setup, you'll need to run Cold Snap into the build, so then when enemies die on Cold Snap, you'll generate Frenzy Charges so you increase your movement speed. Anyway, check out the different options that I've provided in the description for you. But this build pretty much works every single league. Even when people said it wasn't going to work last league, it ended up working. And it does require a little bit more investment, especially if you want to play the Aegis Aurora build. But is it worth it? Absolutely. Is it good at League Start? Absolutely. And what you probably find is you'll start out sort of leveling it into life and then switch to low life as you go, and it'll scale incredibly well as you move through the main campaign, at least in the first playthrough. Anyway, that's the third build that I'm going to feature here. So for build number 4, we're actually going to look at Skeleton Mages. The reason why is League on League, Skeleton Mages has been incredibly powerful. Really only requires 1 gem to scale it up efficiently, and then Fleshcrafter, which is a unique piece of armor, but that I'm assuming that for anyone who doesn't know about Skeleton Mages would be like, what the hell would we even use this for? Pretty much how this build works, and Von Vikton, by the way, is the video in the background, as well as the link will be in the description. Has actually got a really good build around this from a league start and an end game perspective. Now, pretty much how Dead Reckoning works, it's a jewel that you'll find throughout the game. It's relatively cheap early game, just depending on, I guess, the market and how many people are playing the build. And what happens is summoning skeletons can summon up to 15 skeleton mages. And then essentially from there you scale up the damage in relation to, you know, multiple elements. Spell echo, volley, pierce, slow projectiles, everything else in between. Use Veil summon skeletons, and essentially it's just like summoning proxy skeletons that cast, you know, spells on your behalf. Now, how powerful is this build? Well, League on League, I've seen this take down, you know, pretty much any game. Any boss in the game, including the Crystal King. It can be scaled up using Determination. This was actually pretty common for last league. It's just absolutely maxing out Determination and max block and everything else that you possibly can. There's a lot of real avenues that you can go in maxing this build out and making it quite tanky and powerful. What I actually found in talking to a lot of people last league is they got bored of playing this build because it was too powerful. So I've put links in the description to Von Vikton's build. I've also put a POB in the description just generically from Path of Building from 3.16 if you want to have a look at that. I'd also say check out K Gaming's channel, and I'll put a link to her channel in the description as well. She does a lot of Necromancer builds, and in fact she does really good Necromancer builds. She's a master of necromantic you know, builds in PoE, if you want to call it that. But anyway, for build number 4, Skeleton Mages is definitely on the table, and I've had a look through the patch notes. There's been essentially no impact to Skeleton Mages or Dead Reckoning as far as I can see. So go forth and conquer with this one. The 5th build in this curation is actually my Consecrated Pathing / Ground Slam Totem Chieftain build. Now, I actually did a video on this last week, or earlier in the week, I think, and I put up a fair bit of notes, as well as a cheap and a high-end build to move into the next league. The reason why I think this build is going to be quite good for next league, number 1 is so spell totems were nerfed in the patch notes quite significantly, even down to the chest piece that we use, the spider silk chest piece that we use, getting a nerf, and now it doesn't give you an additional totem when you use self-flagellation for spell totems. However, the actual physical damage Earthbreaker totems are quite powerful. Now, there's a little bit of understanding that goes into getting this build working, and I've explained this in my video, which the link will be in the description. And also the Path of Buildings, because it is my video. I'm not going to make you go into the link and whatever if you don't want to. So I'll put everything in the descriptions, and it does have you know, trees from level 40 through to 70 through to 96 to outline how to play it, as well as a cheap version for armor and no bottled faith and a bottled faith version. Now, pretty much the way that totems work, for anyone who hasn't played totem builds in the past, in particular Earthbreaker totems, is it relies on buffing totem effects. So that means the ascendancy off of the Chieftain has a big impact on that, as well as ancestral guidance nodes as well, that give you 30% increased effect. Now, from what I can see, there's absolutely been no touching of this build from GGG around the patch notes, simply because this had a really, really low population of players playing it last build. However, is one of the strongest bossing builds I've ever played in the game, and it basically just nukes things. And you would have seen that in the actual video that I've put up. So yeah, feel free to check this one out, and in particular, if you've got questions around how this build works, post them up. I'll try and get to them in the comments as quickly as I can. There's a couple of other things just around generating power and frenzy charges. Obviously, you can't directly trigger, you can't directly cast skills like Wave of Conviction to do this. How this is actually achieved in this build is through the use of mines and high impact mines, and then basically you use charged mines as a support with Wave of Conviction. And the way that the game works, for some reason, when a spell skill's triggered from the mine, this doesn't negate, or this negates the impact of Ancestral Bond. That would stop you from triggering it yourself, because you're using that, you get that additional +1 totem, and you can no longer self-cast and do your own damage. But anyway, this is all explained in the build. I have a very strong inkling that this is going to be pretty strong in taking on the new bosses. But it does require a bit of defensive maneuvering around how to get it to survive the tankier hits. It is relatively tanky in its own right. Anyway, feel free to give this one a shot, and yeah, everything will be in the description. So I hope these builds sort of get you on track for the 3.17 league. This isn't an exhaustive list, and if you guys want to see a second, top 5 builds, or not top 5 builds, but another good 5 builds to get you into to league start, then feel free to post up in the comments and let me know. Now, as noted, follow the channel, like and sub. It all sort of helps build the exposure of the channel, and yeah, it's pretty cool building a community and basically putting this stuff together for everybody to help them at the league start and throughout leagues. And obviously there's a Twitch channel as well, so check that out. But yeah, good luck with 3.17 and your build planning, and I'll see you next week, if not earlier in the week during some live streams. Anyway, have a good one all, and bye.